Signore e signori, buongiorno e benvenuti.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Vicenza Oro 2022 March edition, which is quite an extraordinary edition. On behalf of IAG, I'd like to welcome you most warmly. The claim of the show is all at once, as you can see there. This is in English because this is the International Trade Fair. So we're all at once together on one single platform, all joined together. This is the objective of Vicenza Oro. Ours is a platform at the service of the community, of the jewelry industry, so as to promote the development of your business, of your culture, of our culture. Looking at issues that have to do with innovation, sustainability, and important part of this community is the club of the Club degli Orafi, who are very focused on culture. So I'd like to welcome Club degli Orafi for contributing their ideas and to promoting the growth of the community, looking at the figures, trying to understand them. Thank you, Mrs. Trenti, for being with us. And Mr. Garella is here with us, and we're talking about industry and the past and future of trade events. Thank you, Giorgio, for having you amongst us. It is quite valuable for us to have you here, and thank you very much to all of you for being with us. Well, my first acknowledgement goes to IEG, who provided us with this opportunity to meet. I've been following many talks, one more interesting than the other, and this is an opportunity for us to meet. The whole of this trade event gives us the possibility to meet eye to eye, to talk together, which is pretty much the same mission of the club. The club is not a federation, it is not an association, it is something pretty unique and quite extraordinary, as we are given the possibility to discuss things. What I'm trying to do is to change the idea of competition into that of cooperation, businessmen joining efforts. So the club has become actually war-free zone where we can meet up together and entertain a new kind of relationship. And we've been getting a very positive feedback. So new members have joined. And the club, as Marco was saying, is a very much culture, which entails, ranging from financial products to social media. So all what has to do with culture is something that we are promoting at the club. And we also try and organize events helping our members to talk to one another, because I believe that discussing things over is quite important. And we'd like to touch ground. And in order to do that, we've got Mrs. Trenti, who's at Intesa Sanpaolo, and Augusti and Mr. Ungare, who's been a member, I think one of the founding members, who's our internal delegate for statistics and figures. And stats are quite important indeed, because they can give us a snapshot of the situation we're in. So I'd like to give you the floor, and thank you for being with us. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased to be here. Introducing one of the main pillars of the Club degli Orafi, that is the sharing of the figures together with Intesa Sanpaolo. The club had been looking at the figures for many years. Getting to know the real picture of the industry, looking at figures, is essential to understand our world and what the business community is facing. I'm very pleased to be here with you at this trade event. Marco has really touched the most important issues that have to do with trade fairs. This edition is actually presenting Vicenza as the first and most important trade event in our industry. So now the focus goes back to Italy, and this, I believe, is a positive advantage, gives us the positive advantage. At a time when most trade events are not proving as trustful for the business community, well, Vicenza trade events and IEG is providing us with quite an important framework where to build the future of our community at a time which is certainly not very easy. So I'd like to thank Marco Carniello for always giving us an opportunity as exhibitors, as Club degli Orafi, an opportunity to carry on exchanging ideas, which is most important. The future of our business community lies very much in debating things over. So we're talking about the economics. We are trying to see to what extent economics is impacting on the choices in our industry. As the president of Club degli Orafi was saying, this meeting is one where data shall be shared, and Mrs. Trenti will do that for us. But we'd like also to share some hope as well, indications, thrust to identify where the future of our industry lies. This is pretty much synonymous with the club. As the president was saying, the club has always been organizing events and initiatives, contributing, raising the awareness, having members involved, so that the business community worldwide could improve. The contribution and cooperation with the Center for Research of Intesa Sanpaolo, and most specifically, we'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Trenti, who has always been supporting us in that. Well, this is one of the core of our business, so that we get to know statistics and we understand the very structure of our business community and our business at large. We've been going through many difficult situations that are more importantly not just on our industry but on the society at large. So we are businessmen, of course, but we're also citizens in this country. We are members to the European Union. We're parts of Europe, so we cannot ignore the responsibilities that we're called upon to share. Mrs. Trenti shall share with us the technical analysis of the Center for Studies of Intesa Sanpaolo, and we've carried out a quality analysis together with the business community that are part of our club, so as to share with you what the situation is in our country. Our world is obviously changing, and we believe that it gets more stable. We will express all wishes for this to become true. Our industry, the gold jewelry in Italy, is quite a relevant industry. It accounts for some over 7,000 businesses in our country, with some 31,000 employees, producing in 2021, and Mrs. Trenti will be more specific at that, a turnover of 11.5 billion. The export is quite relevant, exceeding 70% of the total of the turnover. So the industry is most relevant for Italian economy. It is a source of wealth. It is a positive contribution to our trade balance. And let me insist on that, I believe that this is also an important source of employment. Looking at the results of 2021, we're going to see a positive outlook, and the beginning of 2022 was also characterized by a favorable outlook. This industry certainly has a number of gaps and deficiencies, as is the case of human capital. The opportunities for this industry to grow clash with the possibility to attract manpower and employees. Our world is obviously made of men and women, of craftsmanship, of the possibility to change headcount with the aging of population. This is critical for our world. This is typical of the Italian business community. And one of the most important efforts has to be carried out, and is being made by the Club degli Orafi as well as by many other initiatives, praiseworthy initiatives indeed. Terry has always contributed to training with the training school that they have set up. But then there was another initiative started by Mani Intelligente di Valenza, another initiative providing education and training, so as to have new blood, new people, new young professionals joining the industry. This has been very much the best of our industry. Our industry has a strong need. Most of our products are made both with equipment, but with a strong role being played by the human capital. The human capital is all important when it comes to jewelry items. What is important to us is to have new people joining in, new employees, and we have to work for the training of the new resources. Now, with reference to the pandemics, we believe that the economic repercussions are going to be declining. Unfortunately, we also have additional reasons for instability that, of course, bore importantly on our industry as well. There's a great concern in Ukraine, of course, where all the fundamental rights, as in the Human Declaration of Human Rights, have been violated, with incredible consequences that can bear importantly not just on health, not just on the peace in that country, but also on the very future of our businesses. Certainly, negative repercussions have been perceived by our industry. Indeed, we saw a very dramatic increase in the price of raw materials, gold, as well as precious stones, diamonds in particular, and all the other raw materials that we use for our businesses grew importantly price-wise, with repercussions on our budgets. Gold and diamonds are considered as shelter products, as is always the case at time of difficulties. The World Gold Council, a member to the Club of degli Orafi, has said that this is and this was the situation pre-war, that the central banks in 2021 has piled up tons of gold, which is 80% more than they had the previous year. And this obviously had an impact on the price of gold, on our businesses, and on the market price of our products, of course. There's some food for thought that I'd like to share with you, and we're going to do as much as club, but looking at the consumption of jewels worldwide. I'm talking about some general figure, so how much jewels basically are bought worldwide. 70% of the existing products worldwide was unbranded, with 30% of the products worldwide being branded. Now we have 49% of unbranded products and 51% of branded products. And what we expect is an important growth, again, even stronger growth for branded products. And this is something that we should consider seriously, because this transformation in the market is creating important changes also in the manufacturing plants. There's a strong demand for products, and manufacturing companies have quite a number of orders coming from brands. There's an increase, again, there's a strong increase on branded products, which enables us to keep manufacturing quite high for a high number of businesses. These businesses have to change their model. Here at the trade fair, for example, we have a clear snapshot of different businesses, of diversity of the businesses. The growth of the market, especially in the growth of the market of branded products, will lead all businesses to offer their capability, their skills, their manufacturing potentials in the hands of brands. So individual manufacturing is probably coming to play a lesser role. Italy has always been characterized by quality products, by a strong identity products.
This changes the identity, and it changes the profile of the companies, which from family business, which has always been the backbone of our context, will become part of the world that has rules in terms of organization and fundamental values that are becoming increasingly more important, and that brands have in their own DNA. Ethics, transparency, sustainability, social responsibility. A transformation that we will have to investigate, because for sure it will be reflected also in the figures that we're going to debate presently. And without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to the next speaker. Thank you. To Dr. Trenti. Thank you very much. I will show you a couple of slides to present the main results of a survey, something new, which we have carried out together with Club degli Orafi to integrate and complete statistical quantitative data that we have been monitoring together for many, many years. We started back in 2005. After so many years, we needed something new, and we thought that this was the right moment to introduce some sort of innovation, also because we are going through continuous change, and we thought it was a good idea to produce statistical data with survey data in order to be able to go beyond the figures. So this survey was carried out in February, better said, between the end of January and in the first 15 days of February, on a sample of the associates of Club degli Orafi, a small sample which, however, is highly representative of the different facets of the world of jewelry. 2021 was an extraordinary year. After the downturn in 2020, which did not affect everybody, but on average was significant. During the lockdown, all shops were closed, no tourists were coming. We also mentioned this last September. Well, after this, 2021, there was an extraordinary rebound. Istat data show a growth rate of revenues by 65%, a result that goes beyond any possible expectation. And our associates have almost unanimously replied that they have completely recovered what they had lost in 2020, and that their levels are higher than pre-COVID levels. I would also like to stress that this is really extraordinary if we compare this to the whole manufacturing context in Italy, where many industries have not recovered what they lost in 2020, even though the trend is positive. Specifically, the world of the other industries in the world of fashion still are lagging behind compared to pre-crisis levels, and they have greater difficulties in achieving a satisfactory turnover. Conversely, jewelry shows excellent results. This has been supported by the reawakening of the domestic market. But, as we all know very well, this result is strongly supported by an extraordinary international performance. And in this case, we also managed to monitor quantities through the official data of Istat, and in 2021, it was not just the value. I mean, we have known that made in Italy jewels are moving towards higher price ranges. The top of the brand is becoming increasingly more important. But in 2021, we also have quantities, tons of gold, with an amazing growth rate. Compared to the pre-crisis situation, exports have gone up by 26% in terms of quantity and 13.4% in terms of value. So we're really much more ahead with a more than proportionate recovery. So this is supported by competitiveness, leading to tangible results and based on hard work. This is the answer of our affiliates in our survey, and I believe it is an interesting snapshot of the situation that hopefully will serve as an example. And hopefully this also represents the companies in this industry that are not members of our club. You can see that most companies never stopped investing. They invested and repositioned themselves also in 2020 with the changing context when it was particularly difficult to sell, but nevertheless, investment was not discontinued. In some cases, it was necessary by law to invest in all the hygienic measures. But they have actually invested also on their presence, thinking about the future. We have a highly faceted mix, but these are the priorities of the strategic actions undertaken by our members. Like Ms. Ungarelli told us, the #1 priority right now is training the human capital. Without the people, no development is possible. Without the people in production, but in sales as well, in communication, well, without these people, you do not get results. Ranking second, the other side of the coin, the digitization of production, research and development. These are all equally important, but they're not alternatives in the sense that the digitization of manufacturing processes requires a higher number of staff able to operate the machines. Then, of course, also brand enhancement has also been the focus of significant investment. There are other strategies such as e-commerce development, a shift towards a higher customer target that often goes hand in hand with the enhancement of the brand, and then the generational change, which is strongly connected with the training of human capital, because being attractive towards employees significantly plays a role in this respect. So, training human capital has been mentioned by all the respondents as the priority, achieving the highest ranking. This is a small add-on analysis that we have carried out, focusing on companies in our archives, in the Intesa Sanpaolo archives, so we can analyze also the presence of women in the board of all these companies, another interesting topic that we're going to deepen in the coming months. This is an analysis of age, and as you can see, there has been a shift in the curve from the blue one, 2015, to the orange one, 2021. We can see that most of companies has a leader who's 55 to 59 years old, with a high percentage of companies who had no generational change at all or is going to go through it because of the age of the leader of the company, which is pretty advanced. Expectations. Well, this survey, as I told you before, started in January. We were all pretty optimistic then, because we were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic. And after an extraordinary 2021, everybody was very optimistic, also in terms of 2022. So there is a general positive attitude towards the Italian economy and the world economy at large, and 73% of companies expect more growth in 2022, growth in terms of revenues. Notwithstanding this optimism, in our interview, which was made before the 24th of February, we asked for any possible critical issues. You know, an entrepreneur can be very optimistic, but should always analyze possible critical elements. And the number one issue identified by our associate back in January was the price of raw materials. In 2021, energy prices were already very high, and there was still the problem of the restrictions due to the pandemic, problems in purchasing and provisioning raw materials, the issues with cargo freights, supplies, deliveries, export, import. The situation was viewed as pretty critical because of the aftermath of the pandemic. once again, we find the issue of labor, finding labor and employees, and then the cost to manage stocks. So these are critical issues that were identified in January. So the reaction was repricing, a review of manufacturing processes, entering partnerships with suppliers. Only 9% of the members had activated hedgings, and as a representative of the bank, I have to say that this is a very low percentage. Never before, with a high level of uncertainty, has it been important to buy an insurance. I'm not advertising for our own products, but, derivative has become almost a synonym of speculation, but derivatives are actually hedging products. They're an insurance policy against strong price ups and downs. And already in January, there were some companies thinking that they might have had to give up some orders. What about the supply chain? Well, 40% of the members, when answering our survey, were thinking of changing their purchasing policies, shifting to Italian suppliers. And this brings us back to the development of the human capital. What has happened since the survey? Well, this was before the 24th of February. That's a date of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and this is a watershed date. Nobody knows anything. There is a level of uncertainty that was unknown to us. Maybe the beginning of COVID can be compared to this moment when nobody knew anything. But this kind of situation is particularly difficult. The economic impact. Being an economist, unfortunately, I have to focus only on economic aspects, whereas my heart is beating for the terrible consequences on human beings. But in economic terms, we have the freezing of the international trade, the blockage of harbors on the Black Sea, the sanctions, European and American sanctions. Luxury goods have been included together with dual-purpose technologies. Retaliations may occur. We have kept the gas channel open because that was convenient for us. They've done the same, but nobody can exclude that gas is actually used as a weapon to exercise some pressure on the Western countries. Russia has been excluded from SWIFT. The paying system is going through a significant crisis. The Russian central bank brought the interest rate to 20% yesterday to try and drop the devaluation of the ruble. We do not have a precise estimate on the impact on the GDP in Russia. There will be a contraction for sure, ranging from 8% to 15%. And all this is unavoidably leading to even higher prices for precious items. And there are also commodities in which there are some supply difficulties, like diamonds, given the fact that one of the main operators in this field has been blocked. So this is the impact that we see, and the impact that will be even more relevant for this industry, even though it is a little bit too soon to estimate the impact in quantitative terms. So it is the difficulty of consumers, specifically European ones, in their spending capabilities. The high energy costs are absorbing a significant share of the income of families already suffering from the COVID crisis, and this could curb consumption.
At the same time, we're being told that in the world of gold jewelry, there could be an additional demand created by the very uncertainty. As a matter of fact, there is a very high price, but jewels might be also bought as a shelter product. So rather than having an ingot of gold, I could buy something wonderful, a wonderful jewel. Aren't you happy about that? You know, we are kind of competing on that because I deal with ingots more than jewels. Anyway, we are trying to, we are lowering down the forecast in terms of the growth of GDP in the euro area, less so in the US. In the US, the cycle is different. They have a problem with inflation, but the inflation is not being imported because of the energy cost. It's something inborn. Anyway, it is Europe which is going to bear the brunt. In Italy, France, and Germany, I believe it is going to be us bearing the brunt of this crisis. And then there is an additional problem in moving and traveling. Restrictions connected to the pandemics are lowering down, but new restrictions to mobility are emerging because of the war. There are problems also in crossing the Russian airspace, so many flights are being diverted. If we look at the exports from Italy toward Russia and Ukraine, there's very little because the combination of the two countries accounts for 36 million euro. So when we're talking about exports over 7 billion euro, this is a really limited amount. So this is really peanuts. But as a matter of fact, there might be, as you well know, that might be the case where trade of jewels follows some erratic performances. So it might be the case for this value being very underestimated, because this is what we officially sell on the Russian and Ukrainian market, but it could be much higher, the total. We know that there are many retailers with stores in Russia that buy Italian products following different channels. Anyway, we are not too much concerned about that. What we are more concerned about, is the price of gold. Price of gold is going to be high. We have looked at the forecasts, and we know there's a growing trend in terms of interest rates. The US Fed is expected to raise interest rates, and also the European Central Bank might raise its interest bank, and you might expect that gold might see a decline in its value, but this indeed is not going to happen. So the price of gold might not, but increase. We wanted to get in touch with businesses, and I'd like to thank the Club degli Orafi, and in particular Mrs. Biazon, who really supported us in providing us with data. We decided to interview again the businesses, and most of the responders in this second edition after the February the 24th told us that a negative impact is going to be caused by the war. Sadly, so we're going to have criticalities linked to the prices of raw materials, but also logistics, transportations are going to be negatively impacted by the war, of course. And there's also the problem of the lack of availability of certain raw materials, and there is some fears also when it comes to sales and the introduction of tariff barriers. What is important is that, as happened with COVID, we know that this is going to happen also with this new critical situation. There is an incredible reaction capability on the part of the gold jewelry businesses because they never stand still. The businesses are not expecting the situation to go back as to regular business. We know that they are very active, so changing the mix of sales channel, changing also the sourcing, and that indeed there's going to be an attempt to find the sources closer to home so as to do away with the logistics problems. And then there is also the problem doing with the change of prices and keeping a attentive eye to what is happening. So I'd like to thank again the club for enabling us to do this survey again. We'd like this to become actually a tool which is widely used, extensively used by all the community to understand what the mood of the industry is, even at a time difficult as the one that we are experiencing now with Russia and Ukraine being at war. I believe that there is an extraordinary capability in terms of investment, reaction, and achieving good results that we saw in 2021 after the crisis of 2020, and we cannot but be optimistic when it comes to the future of the gold jewelry industry, despite the severe crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Trenti. We are very proud of the relationship that we have started with you and the Centre. I'd like to thank all the members of the club for responding also to the second survey you launched, because these are obviously more than useful to understand the general trend. So we basically perceive a very positive trend, and I mean, the market is doing its best, but then the world is acting against us. Earlier on it was the pandemic, now it is the war, the energy crisis. That certainly is very worrisome considering the business activity that we have to carry out. What about you, Augusto? What do you think? Looking at figures for 2021, we cannot but see a growth in terms of turnover. We've seen a remarkable growth in terms of exports, and the outlook for the industry is nothing but favorable. The negative impact and the repercussions connected to the war between Russia and Ukraine will bear negatively, but the industry is strong, robust, and sound. There are some criticalities, and these criticalities have already been highlighted. In our two surveys, we've been told that one of the most important elements is that of the human capital. So I believe that we should speculate on that, because, you know, we can look at the statistics only if we know that we can train human capital so as to have additional employees in the industry. We have to retrofit and update our human capital. As companies, members of institutions, we have to work on that and cooperate jointly to fill the gap that we have in terms of training new generations. Yesterday, we've heard that Alta Gamma has carried out a survey, and over the past 5 years, 350,000 professionals will be required in our country alone. And this obviously is something that we should speculate on and adequately consider. The whole of the community should, in a way, get equipped and work to train these professionals as needed. There are clear indicators pointing to that. As I was saying earlier on, there's a favorable outlook. that has been identified looking at the growth in the luxury market, luxury items market. This has been anticipated for the next few years, and our industry, the gold jewelry industry, will grow, and somebody has to manufacture what is being required and requested, and this is something that we are bound to consider. We have to manufacture more, but we have to come to terms with the lack of professionals that we are experiencing. Mani Intelligenti, Smart Hands in Valenza is a project that has been triggered by all the members of the Club degli Orafi, but all the family businesses, major brands, so by all and everybody, irrespective of the size of the business. Tari has organized an important mission when it comes to training. So I believe that the club has already identified certain directions to be followed and operational guidance, because this is going to be a top priority. Now, another important criticality has to do with the price of raw materials. In that case, the role of the club, the role of has to involve mining businesses and all the pipeline. If we just consider diamond, mining diamonds has been stopped. The mines were not accessible during the pandemics, but after the mines, there were also other slows down. Also, the manufacturing has been slowed down. And we know that India is critical for diamond cutting, and we know that India has suffered importantly because of COVID. So this obviously has an impact also on the distribution, on the wholesale, and on retail, of course. As for the future outlook, well, we have to look at the industry as a whole. There are certainly signs of a positive outlook for the market, but all the other items in the pipeline have to be involved. So we need raw materials, we need training, we need new professionals, and the prices are something else on which we can act. The bank was referring, as Mrs. Trenti was saying, the bank has instruments that may be used, and the industry has to be informed of that, and a close partnership has to be entered into between the industry and the bank. And this perhaps is going to be the future in our industry. There are other unknown items. There are other doubts that we have to come to terms with. We have to have hope, but we also have to be aware on a daily basis that initiatives are launched that are consistent with the experience, with the times that we're experiencing. Thank you very much, Augusto. Thank you very much, Mrs. Trenti. I'd like to go back to insurance and edging products. We know that there is room for improvement, of course. We know that culture has to be disseminated so that all the members of our community should learn about edging products, about insurance products. Obviously, our community have to get to know these products, have to know how to use them, so as to negotiate with the difficulties ahead of us. Of course, I can guess, but you have to have edging policies in hand so that you might get something wrong, but you may always stand on your feet. Banks are providing us with these tools, and we have to get to know these tools. So the club has this function as a mission to teach the members of the community. So obviously we have to focus on the negative issues as you have identified. If I may close on that, actually the gold jewelry industry is certainly very well experienced in terms of hedging, because you have to obviously deal with important fluctuations price-wise because of the very important raw materials you deal with. So there are a number of SMEs, but there are also large companies that are better equipped. There are other areas, there are other industries with is only 0.2% that has some kind of insurance or hedging product to rely on. You know, the world is constantly changing, and I believe that insurance policies and hedging products are most important. I think that we can close on that, and see you soon to you all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.